Are you starting or growing a nonprofit organization? Let me share with you some of the things I wish I'd done differently over the past 10 years of growing my own nonprofit. Welcome if this is your first time to my channel. Welcome back if it's not. I'm Amber Melanie Smith. I'm, as you could probably infer from my intro, a nonprofit founder and executive director who makes these videos here on YouTube to help folks who want to make an impact through a nonprofit, social enterprise, socially conscious business, and more. I hope you check out all of my vast library of videos on this topic. Fundraising, starting a nonprofit, social entrepreneurship, all of that great stuff. Check that out in my channel. I think over 200 videos now. I also have a newsletter where I share tips, strategies, and opportunities for folks trying to make an impact or start an organization. You can find that link to subscribe below this video. And my website, foundertofulltime.com, where I have a couple of online trainings and resources for people starting a nonprofit or developing a sustainable fundraising plan for that nonprofit. So go check those out there. Once again, foundertofulltime.com. Okay, a few years ago when I was first starting this YouTube channel, I made a video that was called 7 Mistakes I Made Starting a Nonprofit. And I was actually really surprised by the interest in that topic and the fact that people actually watched that video. And I thought that this would be a kind of an interesting follow-up. Obviously, those were the mistakes I made when I was first starting. I've grown now, the organization has grown, I've learned a lot more, and now I can reflect on some of the things that I've done over the past several years of growing the organization and share some of those insights and help you avoid some of the mistakes that I made and be successful. This video will be helpful, hopefully, to people who are starting a nonprofit. So you're at the very beginning of that journey and you kind of want to look ahead to think about what the future could be. It's also great for people who have been in it for a couple of years and are looking ahead to figure out how you grow from here. So if you're in either of those situations, I truly hope that you find this valuable and helpful to you in your journey to make an impact. All right, so let's get into this. I'm going to talk through 5 mistakes, things I wish I'd done a little bit differently, and now know to do better in the future. Okay, so item number 1, thing I wish I'd done differently, number 1, is pay more attention to change management. And if you don't know what that is, don't worry, I will explain it to you. All right, so if you're a founder like me, you might relate to this. You are used to wearing all of the different hats for your organization. You're used to doing everything, figuring everything out, the marketing, the fundraising, the website, the mission statement, all of that stuff. And you're used to stepping up and making unilateral decisions for the organization. But here's what happened with me. As my team grew, I learned how my tendency to do that, how, stepping up and doing all those things and making these executive decisions and, being the one with the vision to move things forward almost exclusively, I learned how that was having a negative impact on my team in the sense that me doing all that stuff by myself wasn't empowering them to step up and take ownership over the mission and the cause. And if you don't have that buy-in, you also have less passion and success when you're doing things like fundraising or recruiting volunteers or showing leadership for the organization. So it matters to have a team that is empowered. Part of the issue for me was this issue of change management, which I really didn't know much about at the time. Change management, as the name suggests, is the management of change within an organization or a business. It turns out you can't just flip a switch and turn everything on its head and make a big decision all by yourself when you have a team of people around you that might startle or confuse. So you have to carefully plan out how you're going to institute a change that you want to make in an organization so that people understand the change, so that they are bought into the change, and so that they know what their role includes to help make the change a reality. So this is something I know I personally could have done a lot better. And as a founder, I totally get it, because you're used to having to do everything or most of the things. So when a team starts to grow around you, as it should if you're growing an organization, it can be hard to train yourself to bring everyone along for the ride. But if you don't, the consequence is people might not enthusiastically join you along for what needs to change, and that could cause chaos in the organization and a lack of progress towards your mission, which is what it's all about. Okay, so here's what I would do differently and my recommendations to you if you are finding yourself relating to this issue. Basically, follow good change management techniques. The first is assess the problem that needs a solution with your whole team early on. You want to figure out, do they see the problem that you see, and thus the need for a change? If not, what are the factors contributing to their perception of the issue? Do they understand that this problem exists and it needs to be solved? Secondly, identify who on the team are your stakeholders, and that means who has a stake in the change that needs to occur. You want to make sure they have a seat at the table so that they can be heard, and they might even bring in other perspectives about the problem that requires a change that you didn't even think about before, or allow you to see how it could impact their specific role in the organization before the change is instituted, so that you can plan for any challenges far in advance. For example, let's say you as a founder think you have a brilliant new idea for a new fundraiser. Well, you need to make sure that your staff agrees that this new fundraiser is needed and that it is in fact a brilliant idea. They might be able to demonstrate to you some reasons it might not be a great idea, or how it could have a negative impact on other things you're doing in the organization. Or they might agree it's a great idea and be pivotal in determining the best way to execute it. So bringing them along in the idea stage and the problem identification stage is going to solve a lot of the conflict of personality issues you might experience later if you skip this step. So once you've got your stakeholders at the table, you agree that there is a problem that requires some kind of change in order to solve it, you want to work with those folks to create a timeline. What does it look like to slowly implement this change in a way that has the most productive effect on every other aspect of the organization possible? Is this a change that can happen over a few months? Is it going to take a year? If you're a really big organization, changes, depending on their size, could take longer because you have more people to talk to, more people to get buy-in from. There's a little bit more bureaucracy in those larger organizations. So think through that timeline and think of the deadline. By X date, the change will have occurred, and work your way backwards to plot out the steps to execute on that change and who's responsible for what aspect of it. Throughout this whole thing, you want to keep communicating with your team about the progress of the change and each step and how things are going. That will really help them feel that sense of buy-in that we talked about, that will make this change smoother. And when the change is complete, celebrate it as a team. Yay, you did it. You want to show your team that change can be a very positive and rewarding team experience and great for your organization, because not everyone is all that excited about change sometimes, so you've got to bring everyone along for the ride. Okay, the second thing that I want to talk about that, looking back, I wish I'd done a little differently or been more knowledgeable about is how board and staff dynamics evolve and grow as the organization grows. Now, this is similar to change management that I just talked about, but it's specific to your board of directors. A little bit of context. Most new nonprofit organizations, unless they come in with a ton of money from the outset to hire staff with, which is very rare, most new nonprofits are going to have a board of directors that is a working board of directors. And what a working board of directors is it's a board that is almost acting like the staff in the sense that they're handling the day-to-day activities of the organization. This could look like running the programs, handing out the food, managing the accounting, keeping your facility clean. I'm just making up potential day-to-day things, but every nonprofit will be different. So your working board is doing that on top of all the other board related types of responsibilities like governance, fundraising, policy creation, etc. So here's what happens. As your organization grows and usually, you bring in enough revenue to hire paid staff, that those staff members now start doing all the day-to-day activities that the working board had been doing. And over time, what's supposed to happen is your paid staff is handling the day-to-day. Then the board of directors steps back and operates on a higher level, focusing more on strategy, governance, fundraising, relationship building, etc. But they're less in the weeds of the day-to-day operations of the organization because they don't have to be anymore. Now you have paid staff to do that. Then the working board becomes what's called a governing board. So they evolve over time from handling the day-to-day to just handling the high-level stuff and not being in the weeds. Okay, so here's where a problem can arise. As this evolution is happening, as you add more and more paid staff to your team of staff and your board is starting to evolve, there is a chance that people may become confused about their specific roles in the organization, what they should be doing, who should be doing what, and or they might disagree with each other on what their roles should be as the organization is experiencing that evolution. So this can lead to confusion if you don't plan far enough in advance and see that change coming down the road and think about what it could look like to make sure everyone is super comfortable in their evolving roles. So here is what I would do differently and would recommend to you. If you can, think ahead a couple of years. Think about a hypothetical or even realistic situation in which in a couple of years you're going to have paid staff and they're going to handle this role, and this role. Maybe it's like marketing, fundraising, and operations. I'm just making some examples up. So think ahead and then map out a timeline in writing. That's just a draft. Obviously, this will evolve as things occur and change in your organization too. But a draft of that timeline that shows when this staff person is added, this corresponding board role can shift to this instead of this, right? So for example, let's say your board used to have a marketing committee because you didn't have any marketing or outreach staff support, but now you do. So maybe the most effective thing for your evolving board of directors to do is to dissolve the previous marketing committee and have that committee and those committee members become part of fundraising for the organization, which is a classic board responsibility anyway. What I'm envisioning in my head is like a table or a chart that shows a staff role that is, once it's added, how it kind of has a ripple effect on the board and the roles on the board, and basically mapping out what those roles were on the board and what they could shift to now that you have that staff person to kind of take over those day-to-day working board type of responsibilities. But another really important aspect of thinking ahead on this is open dialogue and communication. Sometimes changes and confusion about roles occurs and people don't even realize that it's happening until there's a disagreement. Whereas if you can predict that this is going to be a natural part of the evolution of the organization's team and team dynamic, you can think ahead and get ahead of that by having an open dialogue with how everyone believes the organization's leadership dynamics should change as more paid staff are added to your team. Okay, mistake number 3 that I made and what I would do differently is overthinking technology / not investing in the right technology earlier in the organization. So let me explain. In my particular case, we had some programming that really needed, or that we believed really needed, some custom technology that we spent quite a bit of time thinking through how to develop this software ourselves. But the problem was we were not software developers. We did not know how to do this. And so we were really just spending kind of a lot of time trying to do something that we had no business doing and could have more easily outsourced to people who knew what they were doing or who had a technology solution that would have been sufficient, even if it wasn't perfectly customized to our needs. Since then, I have seen the power of identifying and investing in the right technology tools on its impact on our entire team, our efficiency, our effectiveness, how we work together, and how we achieve our mission. So here are some of the types of technology that I would have invested in a lot earlier on had I known to do so. Okay, the first thing is file storage. It sounds like a small thing, but imagine having a team and everyone has all the organization's files on their own laptops, and no one can access each other's stuff. You're constantly finding and emailing each other large files. It's just very annoying. So we moved to cloud storage solutions that were collaborative, so everyone on the team could find what they were looking for and access it quickly. And this one small thing enabled us to operate so much more efficiently as a team. A shared password tool was also a game changer for us. Similar to the file situation, imagine bunches of people on your team having to create different accounts for things like, I don't know, some store you need to buy from over here, Amazon account over here, your accounting software over here, and they all have their own logins, and no one can log into something without hounding someone else for their password, and it's just, a lot of time wasted trying to hunt down access to accounts. So password tool for the whole team meant we could just store all of the team's passwords in one place securely so that people could log into that one thing and get the organization's login information and use it as needed instead of create 10 different accounts for things. Accounting software is another big one, and I've talked about this in other videos, but the earlier you can get this, the better, because it really helps you with financial projections. But being able to quickly log expenses and categorize them and make sure that we can get a clear picture of how we're spending our money and bringing in more money, very, very helpful. A donor CRM, or customer or client relationship management software is what that stands for. This is another one that I've talked about in past videos. If you are gonna be trying to grow your fundraising, and especially if you have a couple people on your team who are supposed to be helping with fundraising, a CRM is a must-have, because before having a CRM, we were just writing notes about donors and our interactions with different sponsors on spreadsheets, on documents, in our emails, and no one could reference them or find them easily. So let's say I had a fundraising person on my board or my staff, and they were making all these personal notes about the people they were interacting with, and then they left the organization. Well, how am I supposed to get all those notes? So having a CRM is, this database where you have all of your notes about your fundraising efforts in one place. So one of my team members can log in, they can see my notes about this donor in case they need to talk to that donor on a phone call tomorrow. They know our history with that person, and it just really helps with team collaboration. And then the final game-changing piece of technology that we invested in, and I wish we had done so earlier, is a project management tool. Before our project management tool that our whole team can access now, we were using Google Docs to create to-do lists for the team every couple of weeks. And the documents just became messy, and people would put their notes on there about what they were doing and their progress, and it became really unwieldy. And now we have, super cool project management tools that we can use to see what everyone's working on and see their progress on each item. And it's been huge for team efficiency. This is a perfect segue to share more about the sponsor of today's video, Argenta Software, because many of the technology needs that I just described are rolled into their nonprofit solution. Argenta software can help you maximize your resources by streamlining your day-to-day, administrative, and your time and money-sucking tasks. There's everything you need integrated all in one place to help you run your organization. So you don't have to worry about countless subscriptions or disconnected systems, or in my case, lots of spreadsheets all over the place. Argenta can really help you streamline everything. It's also really fast and easy to subscribe and get started with Argenta. I was able to create a login and start exploring their full system within a couple of minutes. Organizations get a helpful dashboard that shows you a snapshot of everything going on in your organization at once, from your current goals to things going on with your various types of constituents, like your board members, your customers, or people giving you money. Real talk, I've personally talked to the Argenta team, and one thing that continues to impress me about them is they authentically, genuinely care about nonprofits and the work that we are trying to do to change our communities and change the world. I can say with complete honesty that I've really been impressed by their authenticity and their genuine concern for nonprofits' ability to make an impact and for it to be easy for us. I've talked to lots of different companies who serve nonprofits, and I just love how they show their human side. So that's just a personal comment on my interactions with them that I hope will be meaningful to you as you're considering potential software to use in the future. Definitely check them out. I will leave the link to their webpage below this video. You can get a demo, you can get a free trial, you can talk to the Argenta folks. They're really dedicated to making sure that their software works for every budget, so don't be afraid to have a human conversation with them, and check them out at the link below this video. All right, getting into more mistakes Amber made, yay! Number 4 is not investing in marketing earlier than we did. So in the beginning, I viewed marketing as like a nice to have. It took us several years before we really considered investing in both marketing in the sense of like purchasing ads or, having a budget for partnerships and stuff like that, all the way up to having an actual marketing manager on our staff. But looking back, I realized that an earlier investment in marketing would have helped us in a number of ways. For one, pushing marketing faster earlier would have raised brand awareness about our organization. It would have grown our email list faster, which then in turn leads to more volunteer signups and more people donating to our organization. So having that larger audience early on would have probably increased our budget faster and increased our volunteer pool faster also. So in terms of what I would do differently, the first thing is to just have a mindset shift around marketing. If you, like me, were thinking of marketing as a nice to have, consider what I've just shared about how it has a ripple effect on the whole rest of your operations and your mission. I know it can feel hard to sell the public on the need to invest in things like advertising dollars or a marketing staff person, but you can make the case for how it will have a direct impact on the number of people you can help in your community, because the larger your audience, the more dollars, the more volunteers, and then the more people helped. If your budget is tight, which I totally understand, consider some low-cost ways that you can experiment with marketing. Things like partnering with businesses to get the word out, ask them to share about your work in their mailing list, cause marketing partnerships, etc. And as your budget grows and develops, consider what you can reinvest back into marketing, whether that's saving up to hire a marketing manager or other outreach devices like those advertising, graphic design, video needs, etc. And think about what you can do now as an organization. At the very least, you should have key talking points written out for your entire team that include your mission statement, some of the most important statistics about the issue that you're trying to tackle, maybe a testimonial by someone that you've helped. And of course, you need a branding kit, which would include your logo, any prominent graphics that you use all the time, the fonts that you use, the colors that you use, something that everyone on your team can consistently be using if they are part of creating outward-facing materials for your organization. All right, the 5th mistake I'm going to talk about is not assessing our true costs and what it really costs to run the organization and cover our capacity and growing needs earlier on. I totally get it. When you are first starting out, it can feel so exciting to get any donation or any amount of money. And sometimes this excitement can lead you to underestimating everything that it costs to effectively run your organization, which can lead to avoiding communicating clearly with donors or sponsors or grant makers in the future about what it really costs to run your organization. If people don't understand what it really costs to run nonprofits, first of all, your mission suffers. You're going to feel like you're always underfunded and you never have any growing room. But it also affects nonprofits across the board because there's a public perception about where money is supposed to go in nonprofits and how much it costs to run nonprofits that is damaging the entire sector and causing the entire sector to be underfunded. So you can do your part by communicating transparently about the needs of your organization. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, consider this. When you're first starting out, and let's say, I'm just making this up, let's say you are an organization combating food insecurity. And let's say you communicate to your audience that you have no paid staff, so every dollar goes to purchasing food for the people that you're serving. Well, in theory, that sounds great, sounds compelling at first. But what happens when you need to add paid staff because adding paid staff is going to help you serve a lot more people and build your capacity to do so? Well, now when you add paid staff, the people who donated before are going to be like, well, before you said it was so great to not have paid staff, so does that mean it's bad now that you have paid staff? Instead of communicating it like that, about, saying how great it is to not have staff or not pay your staff high, competitive rates so that they don't have to also use your food services. Instead of that, focus on the impacts. Say, if we can build our capacity by having 3 paid staff positions next year and raising X amount of money in order to hire this paid staff, we can serve this many more people. It's all about framing it to focus on the impacts and the return on investment of people's financial support rather than what is being saved by not investing in those critical things earlier. How do you do this? First, do a deep dive into your own operations. Think, what does it really cost you now, from keeping your lights on to the equipment and materials you need to deliver on your programming to your accounting software? All of these things are real costs for the organization that without those things, you can't run the organization effectively. What are all those things? Make sure that they're clearly represented in your budget. Then be transparent and open with your community and the public about what it takes to keep the lights on, keep the organization running, and delivering these critical services to everyone. It is true that not everyone understands the necessity of some of the infrastructure that goes into nonprofits and the fact that these things cost money. But if you can develop some talking points with you and your team to clearly explain how those things lead to more impact, then have little faith in your community that they will get on board and understand the need for funding and become your generous supporters. All right, I'd love to hear from you. Are you growing as a nonprofit or social enterprise right now? Are you experiencing some of these similar challenges or other challenges? Share in the comments below. As I mentioned before, don't forget to check out my friends at Argenta Software. They have a lot of the technology that I wish I'd had earlier on in the organization. It would have made things so much more efficient and smooth. Check them out. Once again, I'm going to leave that link below this video. I'll also share how you can subscribe to my newsletter down there. And finally, I invite you to join our Facebook group, Change the World or Bust, where we have over 5,000 people talking about how they're making an impact and helping each other out along the way. Don't forget to watch some of my other videos on this channel for more strategies on making your social impact through nonprofits, social entrepreneurship, and more, and see how they can help you out. So I'll see you next time. I'm Amber Melanie Smith. Bye.